absolutely no research into this, immediately 100 men from the medieval period instead of 100 modern men, because I feel like they've probably been trained in combat and stuff. And also, I feel like the vast majority of modern men nowadays would just like cry if someone hit them.
Not saying I strongly disagree, but I do disagree. Primarily because your entire argument is that most men in the medieval period study combat and stuff. The problem of this is the majority of men in the Middle Ages were peasants and farmers, not knights. More importantly, just because there's a lot of soft guys nowadays does not mean the majority of modern men are soft. And please do not bring up the whole, but men want 50-50 now. Yeah, women abandoned their traditional gender role. It stands to reason that men would start raising their standards in dating too. That doesn't prove men are weak. It proves that men are learning and adapting accordingly to the modern dating scene. But as far as combat goes, my entire living room is essentially a downstairs kickboxing gym. I'm about to put up a speed bag. I have a wrestling bag and a high-capacity assault teddy bear. Plain and simple, the average modern man is more likely to have combat training than the average medieval peasant. That's why when peasants went to war, they brought farming utensils instead of legitimate weapons. And don't even get me started on nutritional value and the average calorie intake of a modern man versus what even kings were eating in the medieval period. Plain and simple, capitalism produces more food and better quality than feudalism by a long shot. And that doesn't even count for the fact that 75% of food grown today would not be able to be grown in the Middle Ages simply because there wasn't enough nitrogen in the soil. Just over 100 years ago, the number one way people fertilized the soil to increase the nitrogen in it was to use bird shit. Now we just take nitrogen in the air and turn it into liquid ammonia thanks to the Haber-Bosch process. Cue the Sabaton fans. Hi, it's me. I'm Sabaton fan. But even if you took medieval knights and put them up against modern soldiers, I'd still give modern soldiers the edge over medieval knights. Just look at how much combat sports have changed over the last 100 years alone. Extend that gap to 1,000 years, it's not a contest. Bottom line, my money's on the modern men, not the medieval men, because the average medieval man was a malnourished peasant. Hell, I think modern teenage boys versus grown medieval men would be overkill.